Hey there, friends. I was trying to decide which of these AMAs I should use for my dev tips today, and decided to see how many of them I could just get through. So, without further ado, since you spend so much time teaching, do you feel like you're learning? Um, yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes I'm frustrated because I'm spending so much time developing content for like my testing course that I'm working on, or a series of courses and things like that. And I'm like, I'd really like to go learn Reason or something like that, and I don't have time to do that because I'm spending so much time on the material or teaching, getting that ready. But the secret is that I'm actually, like, part of the process of my learning is the teaching piece. And so when I do move on from what I'm finishing in teaching now, I'll easily be able to move on to whatever the next thing is that I want to teach. And with that, um, I can learn as part of that experience as well. So I'll say, hey, I want to learn Reason, so I'll build a little app with it or something, and then I'll teach as I go. And yeah, it's all just a process of teaching as you're learning. I've got a talk about that. It's called 0 to 60 in software development. Let's see, 60. Oh, software. There it is. How to jumpstart your career. I'll paste a link to that here. And that'll be confusing. I'm recording something now. More info forthcoming. So yeah, check that out, and that's my process of learning. So I do feel like I'm definitely still learning. Like, the whole process is all learning. I do feel slightly like I'm not learning the things that I want to at some points, but for the most part, I'm learning what I want to. So I'm pretty happy about that. Cool. So the next one, what do you use to take notes for work as well as personal tasks? So I'm not really a note taker. I don't really take notes during meetings much. Yeah, I don't really do notes. But I do use, sometimes if I need to keep something, then I'll use keep.google.com. Or if it's just something that I need to hang around for a little while, then I'll use Sublime. I use a VS Code for my regular editor, and so I'll just use Sublime, and it'll keep the text up as long as I want it to, basically. Even when I close it, when I open it up again, it'll keep that text up again. I can save that file if I want to, whatever. So yeah, I don't really, yeah, no good answer there. But yeah, good luck. Okay, how do you measure personal growth? This is from Sid, one of my buddies. In the context of learning, building things, personal goals. So for me, and then I guess we've got a follow up. How do you measure the level of your skills? You can learn the basics of and build stuff with React without making any progress. Okay, yeah. So my personal growth. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really do a whole lot of measuring of my personal growth. I just keep on. I guess it's my. I don't really track the personal growth per se. I just think of, like, I'm trying to get to this goal, and then I keep on working until I get to that goal. And then in the process, I'm growing, and I don't spend a whole lot of time measuring it. I'm mostly interested in finding happiness in general, and so how do you measure your level of happiness? I don't know. I talk to my wife a lot, and I don't know. This is kind of a non-answer. Sorry, I don't really have much to give by way of this. As far as, like, how do you know when you're ready to move on to my advanced course on React or something? So I'm a religious person, and I'm not I don't want to say that, like, what I my stuff is like scripture, but I'm just going to make an analogy here. When I read the scriptures, I learn a lot of really interesting things. Even though, like, like the prophet or the pope, they're still reading scriptures, and so there's not really a point at which it's okay for you to read scriptures. Of course, you should be reading your scriptures, but like we read them multiple times, and so I go through the scriptures and I finish reading the Bible or Book of Mormon, and then I go back again and I start over, and I get new insights the next time around. And so as far as like when should you move on from the beginner course to the advanced course, feel free to watch it now, and then watch it again in a month or two, and then again later. And that process of repeated learning can be helpful. And like I said, it's kind of a rough analogy because I'm not going to compare my stuff to scriptures. But like at some point you'll be like, yeah, there was nothing really new I got out of that. So then you can move on. Hopefully that's helpful. Good luck with that. And yeah, somebody just asked in the chat if I'm willing to take questions. I'm absolutely willing to take questions. So feel free to ask away, and I'll check out the chat too. Okay, so another one from Sid. How do you help attendees get the most out of workshops? This was asked as part of a thread on Twitter. And Sid was saying, hey, I bumped into your sticky note tip for workshops, gonna try it tomorrow. And I was like, oh wait, don't do that because I've got this other thing, and then I never answered it in time. So yeah, I tried it once and it worked out okay. Basically the sticky note tip is you're in a workshop setting, everybody's got their laptops, you give everybody different colored sticky notes, and then they when they're working on stuff they don't have any sticky notes. If they have trouble, they put on a red sticky note or something on their computer, then you can look around. That way they don't have to like wave their hand and announce to the world that they're having trouble, which can be uncomfortable for some people. And then when they're all finished, they can put a green sticky note on. That way, without interrupting anybody, I know like where's everybody at. I can go help people out. The idea is pretty good. In implementation, it just never really seemed to work. People would just forget, and it was kind of annoying. And so yeah, what I do now is a fair amount different. So I used to have like 2 exercises where I would do the exercise myself, and then I would like have a exercise for them that was a lot more like very, very similar to what I just did, and then set them off on that. And I decided that, this is pretty kind of pointless. Lots of people were just kind of regurgitating what I did. Often the exercise, their version of the exercise was very similar to mine. And so they were just typing out what they just saw me do. So what I do now, if we go to the Advanced React Patterns course, we'll go into the Code Sandbox, is I have just one set of exercises, and I let people loose on the exercise before I even touch it, before I touch the subject really. So if you look at the exercises in here, and I'll let that go away, it's just very, very documented on exactly what the expectations are. I have a usage example here, and I'll talk about the usage. I'll say, hey, this is what it's supposed to be able to do, and then I set them off on the example or on the exercise with really, really well commented examples of or pros, I guess, of what they're supposed to do as part of the exercise. And that way it's very guided, so people actually don't need help during the exercise very often. But it's not something that they've seen somebody else do before. And so it seems to work out really, really well. And so yeah, I'll also have a chat open that people can chat to me if they have questions, or they just raise their hand. And I also, as they're doing the exercises, I'll walk around weaving in and out of the tables to because often when you get close to somebody, they think, oh yeah, he's right here, let me just ask him really quick. But if you're sitting up at front the whole time on your phone or on your computer or something, then often they won't interrupt you. And so yeah, spend a lot of time weaving in and out during the exercises. Give them really, really self-guided exercises, and then when like often I'll actually stop before anybody's had time to finish the exercise, because the point is they're just supposed to kind of get their feet wet with the content. And that way, when I go through the content, they have a lot more context into what they're trying to learn here. And the questions that they ask will be a lot more insightful for them and for everybody else. So hopefully that's helpful. Good luck with your workshops. Okay, so I've got a couple questions, in the, some questions in the chat on YouTube. So any ReasonML projects coming up? Nope. I might think about writing my website in Reason, but I'm also thinking about writing my website in Gatsby, which is probably what I'll do. So I'll have to come up with something else. But my website isn't anything much. I even have a disclaimer if you're unimpressed with the website. So yeah, I'm not sure. If you have any ideas, let me know. So we've got a brand new software engineer, a couple internships, and a personal goal is I want to be a master of React and JavaScript. Any book, course, other suggestion? Yeah, and you're reading You Don't Know JS. And yeah, so You Don't Know JS is a fantastic series of books. I definitely recommend that. I don't read books. I used to. Early on, I read quite a bit, but I now don't like read any books. I spend most of my time working through like trying to build stuff and beating my head against a wall sometimes a little bit. Maybe when I start Reason or something, I'll do a little bit more reading and stuff, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable in what I'm working on, and I can normally figure things out. So I don't have any really good suggestions for you. There's also JavaScript 30. That's a good course from Wes Boss you could check out. I have a course on YouTube that is totally free. I actually have recordings of lots of my courses available on YouTube. That is ES6 and beyond, and you can find these two parts there. So yeah, hopefully all that is helpful. Okay, do you think HOCs, that's higher order components, are a good use case for fetching data? So I'll just stop right there and say higher order components are a mechanism for sharing code. So like whatever code you're trying to share, you can share it with a higher order component. So whether that's fetching data or like styled components as a higher order component, that kind of thing, then that's fine. So as far as fetching data, yeah, totally. Like I don't see any reason why it would be a bad use case for fetching data. I prefer renderer props myself, but if you want to do something like that, then this is fine. Yeah, lots of Redux stuff in here. I gotta be honest, I don't do Redux like at all. I'm a terrible person to ask for advice about Redux. I don't really like it that much, and I very rarely use it. So what I'm seeing here though is use of Compose, React Compose, and I have never myself used React Compose, at least not extensively. But any code that I've seen that uses React Compose is always very, very confusing to me. All of this stuff like wiring in together, it's so confusing to me. So I would probably not write code like this. I just have a really hard time following that stuff. And I would recommend just using regular React composition to share code. So yeah. Let me just see. Yeah, seems like a big departure from what's typical. I would probably say that, yeah, doing something like yeah, I don't know, it just seems overly complicated, that's all. So what I'd recommend is just stick with React components. On component did mount, you can fetch, or like component did receive, or component did update, you can refetch or whatever, and then that can expose a render prop API, and don't try to prematurely extract parts of the code that you think could be shared, like you have to duplicate code at least 2 or 3 times before you have a good idea of what the abstraction should look like anyway. So hopefully that's helpful. Sorry if I hurt your feelings. Okay, so how to convince your team to invest time on code improvement. Somebody asked me this in my email. So yeah, how to convince the business people to invest engineering time on code quality and tests. They're 100% focused on new features. So here's what here's the deal. It's really important for business people to understand that technical decisions impact the bottom line. So if you are unable to deliver, like here's an example. At PayPal 2 years ago or so, I was tasked with a feature to change our landing page. That's a really important page. Highly experimental. We had like 7 different variations. Well, no. 15 different variations of this page. Very slight, like we switched the title and description or like different things like that. And so it was a page that changed a lot. And I changed it. I was tasked to add another variation, and it took me 2 weeks because it was really hard to know, can I share this CSS or should I write my own CSS file? What can I change and not impact other pages? So it was really difficult. And so after that, they said, hey, this is not what we want. We want to be able to make changes to this page more rapidly. And so they gave me the task to re-architect it so I could change it more rapidly. And that was because the product had a good understanding that the technical limitations impact the bottom line. We wanted to be able to move faster, and so there were technical problems behind that. I said, hey, listen, like they said, we need to make another change. And I said, well, you know how it took me 2 weeks last time? It'll probably take me 2 weeks again. And they say, like, I thought lots of that was ramp up time. No. This is just a really complicated area of the app. We need to make changes, code quality, tests, whatever. And so that's when the business people say, okay, if you can make it so you can make changes to that page in a day, then we'll give you the time you need to re-architect things. So you have to, like, business people are very motivated. Many of them are very motivated by the bottom line and like how quickly features can go out the door, how reliably they can go out the door, and all of those things are related to technical problems. And if you don't do a good job of managing the technical debt in your application, then it can really slow you down. And you just have to communicate well to the business people that unless you take time to address those technical problems, the bottom line is going to grow less and less what they want it to be. And so like once they get that understanding, then they'll give you the time that you need. But until then, you just say, hey, I want to like rewrite the application to this new framework. And they're like, yeah, well, that doesn't help me at all. You just want to go play around with this new fancy thing. And they don't understand that. But they do understand that like you can make improvements to the code, which will make improvements to the reliability of the software and the speed at which you can ship features, which are important to them. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. And moving on to the next. I know JS, but I can't build my own library or tool. You've seen my courses, spent a lot of time understanding JavaScript, but building some tools like many people do, I can't. How do you break down a problem and think about the solution? So there are a couple mechanisms you can use. So the first is there is this idea of README driven development that I really like. The idea is that you, and I think Zeit actually does this, which I recently found out this is what they do. But you document what you want to create first. So the API that you want to have exist, like developer experience or user experience, whatever, and so you just put that in the README. Like this, pretend the project exists. How would I use it? And then you can use that to drive your development of the software. You might use that to drive the tests that you create as well. So if you want to do test-driven development, then that can help too. And then and then you can go into actually implementing it. Sometimes you'll come across, like I've done this before, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great, and then I'll start implementing it and realize that it's technically not feasible for one reason or another, and that can be kind of frustrating. But that process generally is a good one, and so hopefully that is helpful to you. README-driven development is great. Good luck. Okay, what's the best and efficient approach to write CSS in React? So my favorite way, I mean, this is very subjective. You're asking me, so I'm going to tell you my favorite is emotion. So there's also Glamorous, I should mention. I created Glamorous a while back for PayPal. That was actually that story I was telling you about re-architecting that page. Glamorous is the project that came out of that process. I've deprecated Glamorous in favor of Emotion because Emotion is more capable and smaller and faster. So it can do everything Glamorous can do and more. So I really like Emotion. I definitely recommend you give it a try. Yeah, I mean, there are trade-offs with these CSS and JS libraries, but the most important thing to me is that I can answer the question, can I delete the CSS? Which is very hard to answer without CSS and JS. So yeah, hopefully that is helpful. Good luck. Okay, I think I'm missing some questions in the YouTube chat. Let's see. Arthi suggested I make my site with Gatsby using the Gatsby plugin Reason plugin. And actually, I thought about that, so maybe I'll do that. We'll see. Raken Neimer? I'm not sure how to say your name, sorry. But saying my Egghead courses are great too, thank you. And Friend of Masters Dev Drive said, thank you. Well, another thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being so nice. Okay. Oh yeah, styled components. Somebody was asking on that last question, why not styled components? Because Emotion is still smaller and faster than styled components. And Emotion also has this really awesome feature that I'll show you too. If we go to documentation and the Babel plugin, CSS prop, CSS as a prop will be transpiled to a class name property. Let's see. There it is. Ta-da! So with the Babel plugin, you can actually add a CSS property, which actually is similar to a style property, except using the style property has a couple of issues. Well, first off, it doesn't need a Babel plugin. It just works, which is nice. But the style property, you can't do pseudo selectors like hover or after or before or whatever. It can't do media queries or anything, but the CSS prop can. And so that's one of the reasons I like the CSS prop. But yeah, so you can just write your code using the CSS prop, and then it'll get transpiled down into this thing, which is really awesome. So that is the biggest reason that I prefer Emotion over styled components, is because with styled components you have to name everything, whereas with Emotion you don't. So okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. Must-have apps for programming or productivity in general. Okay, so I should have like a uses page, so I don't have to answer this over and over again. Eventually I'll make that, but for now, I use Alfred like all the time. So Alfred app, huge productivity boost, and I use features from Alfred pretty extensively as well. I am a Power Pack user. It's great. I love Alfred. Get Alfred, learn Alfred. It's awesome. Another one that I use, I just upgraded it today actually, is Bartender. Okay, come on, go away. So it allows me to choose which icons show up here. Really awesome. Yeah, so preferences, it's bartender over here. Whoop. So give bartender a look. It's fantastic. Not really a productivity tool necessarily, but I really like it a lot. Also text edit or text expander. I don't use this one a whole, like I sort of use it. I'm on an old version because I didn't want to pay for the upgrade. And it sort of works. Yeah, I'm starting to use Alfred. The Power Pack has this snippets feature. So I have a snippet for React. I write so many counter components, I decided to make a snippet for it. And also a general component. So like I use snippets in my editor, of course, but if I'm in like Code Sandbox or something, it's nice to have this too. So I've been meaning to add more snippets to Alfred. Alfred's pretty powerful. I use VS Code for my editor. I used to be big on Atom, but VS Code is pretty nice. I like that. Yeah, other than that, I don't know. I don't use a whole lot of apps. Chrome, I guess. So anyway, hope that's helpful. Oh, I also use 1Password. It's great. Also, somebody made me wise on this sweet new extension for managing extensions. You can enable and disable extensions really easily. So here are some of my extensions. 1Password. Yeah, I should disable that thing. Don't need that. Async render toolbox. I can't remember what that is. Accessibility developer tools is good. Flagger. Boo. CodeCove has a cool extension. You'll see that in like on GitHub. I have this emoji assistant extension, which makes me so I can say like, well, it won't work on GitHub, but I use it on Twitter and stuff. Kind of a cool one. And GitHub +1. So if somebody just +1s in a comment, it'll it'll remove their comment and just add something at the top that says how many +1s people have on there. Repository size is kind of a cool one. Check that one out. JSON viewer. So if you're looking at a JSON file, it'll show it like in the browser. Then it'll show it in a nice way. Live reload I use sometimes, not very often. Lighthouse is great. Octolinker. So you're looking at import statements in a GitHub file. You can click on one of those and it'll actually take you to that file in GitHub. Password alert. I can't remember what that does. I think it's from Google and it just tells me when I'm typing an unsafe password or something. Palette tab is my new new tab page, which normally loads faster than this one. Yeah, there it is. So that one's kind of cool. People ask me about that one all the time. Refined Twitter is cool. Just makes Twitter a little less busy. Refined GitHub, I have a local copy because some of the features from Refined GitHub I don't like very much, so I just kind of modified some of those. React Developer Tools, of course. Stack Edit is actually how I use or how I write my newsletters. It's a really awesome app. I'm a paying subscriber of that. Snoopy, I actually can't remember what Snoopy does. I think it has something to do with preventing tracking or something like that. I've got a bunch of those. Contributors on GitHub, that's a little, I think that's what's doing this thing. That's from Henry Zhu. Pretty cool. Little extension. Tab is this, oh, whoops, I just turned it off. This cool extension that I don't actually use a whole lot. Well, oh, here it is. I thought it had an icon, but it allows me to like search through my history and open a different tab and stuff using keyboard shortcuts. Pretty cool, and it has the ability to have like groupings and things like that. It's really fully featured. I just haven't used it a whole lot. So that one's a cool one though. And then tab size on GitHub. This is, I think Sindri Soros made this because he uses tabs, but GitHub makes tabs like 8 characters. And so he made it go down to 2 or something. Twitter for GitHub. This will sometimes work, but when you're on a GitHub profile page, it'll show you the Twitter for that user. Kind of nice, especially when you want to say thank you to somebody on Twitter. uBlock origin is to help block trackers. Unpackage link adds a link to unpackage on an npm package page. Video speed control is a great one. It adds like a little icon at the top left of a video so I can increase the speed. That one's nice. So I use that occasionally. Okay, cool. So hopefully that was all helpful. If somebody wants to take all those, like Google them and stuff and find links and put them in here, that'd be super cool. Okay. How can a developer enhance his knowledge from day to day? His or her. I'm sure that my advice could apply to anyone. So, sorry, I should have read this beforehand. I can learn tips, accomplish tasks, deadlines, but spend a lot of time copy paste. I want to stay up to date. I want to commit to open source. I'm afraid I can't succeed in resolving an issue. Okay, cool. So, yeah, let's see. So staying up to date, that one's kind of a tricky one. You just kind of like talk to your friends and coworkers. How do you stay up to date, and ask them for who they follow and stuff like that. That's good. I follow a couple of newsletters. You can look in my AMA for the newsletters that I follow and podcasts that I listen to and things. Because I have other issues there. If somebody wants to find those and put a link, that'd be cool. I also, I don't know, like I follow a bunch of people on Twitter that I share interesting things and kind of help me keep up to date. I don't spend a ton of time diving deep into every single little thing. I don't read every blog post. I'll skim blog posts. I generally don't read a blog post that takes longer than 5 minutes to read anyway. And it just mostly gives me an idea of what's possible, and then I can go back later when I need that knowledge. As far as open source projects, it definitely takes some time to get into the open source project, and it can be really frustrating. And so don't try avoiding taking on really big tasks in a project that you're not familiar with, and spend a little bit more time on smaller tasks, like even documenting things and stuff like that. It can be really helpful. I also have this blog post, what OSS, my bulletproof answer to, or my silver bullet answer to, like, what project should I contribute to. And I talk about a little bit about how to learn open source projects. Also, spelunking node modules. I don't have a short URL for that. Could be helpful too. And yeah, sometimes resolve problems in HackerRank website. I don't know what that is. But yeah, hopefully that's all helpful. Don't feel down on yourself. It takes a lot of time to get into contributing to open source and things like that. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Okay, I've created this React package. Any thoughts? You'd be surprised how, maybe you wouldn't, but I get questions like this on Twitter and stuff like multiple times a day. I don't know why everybody asks me, especially like I have received like at least 30 people have said, I built this simple abstraction on top of Redux. What do you think? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm the worst person to ask that. I don't like Redux. Or yeah, anyway, kind of funny. Okay, so here's the question. A fast way to generate a new component with tests. Oh, okay, so it's a component generator. So my thoughts on generators in general. I never use a generator I didn't write myself, because it, like, often what you end up with is a bunch of code that isn't relevant to my use case. And so I actually don't use generators for generating a file. Like, pretty much ever. I don't know. So my feedback is, if you want to make something that's reusable, I'm not the person to ask, because it doesn't matter how great it is. I'm probably not going to use it. If you want to make something that works for you, then you're the one to ask, and you'll know. So, yeah, I think it's great. So I'm good on you for creating it. I'm afraid I probably won't use it, and so I'm not a really great person to ask. Sorry. Okay. What's your motivation for producing content? So this is a great question from Josh, who I met at Chain React recently. So I do produce a lot of content. I have these live streams every day, and I have my blog post every week, and I have my courses on Egghead and Front-End Masters, and a bunch of other stuff. So what he says is, I've noticed that most folks doing so are either DevRel or looking to start a teaching business. He doesn't want to do either, but he does want to produce a lot of content because it's helping and it's content he wishes existed. Starting to wonder if he's crazy for doing it without it being a business. So here's why I produce so much content: because it's fun. I really like doing it. Also, it's part of my part of the process of learning for me is producing the content. In particular, like doing these AMA things, I enjoy doing it mostly because I get the same questions over and over again, and so I can point to these answers, and people get their answer without me having to repeat myself. The dev tips thing is actually really, it's a low effort, high value way that I can create content. So often it'll only take like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something. Right now we're at like 30 minutes, over 30 minutes, but you know, it's not, it doesn't take a crazy amount of time. So yeah, that's kind of my motivation. It's mostly because I enjoy it, partially because it's my process for learning, and also because, like, who knows, maybe one day I will start a teaching business, and so like this will be helpful. But yeah, for now it's mostly those reasons. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, how to motivate others to learn your work projects. Motivate others to try more advanced techniques like patterns. So yeah, I just get really jazzed about it, really excited, and wonder why people aren't as excited about it as I am. I don't know. Yeah, in my work projects, like we do code reviews, and so I'll say, hey, this could, like, we could use a render prop here, and it would make a lot more sense to separate these things. So sometimes I'll give it a little example or something. Often the pattern speaks for itself, and they say, oh yeah, that's great, let's do that. So yeah, often I don't really have to do a ton of like arm twisting or anything. It's tender loving care, you know, during the review process. And yeah, most people are interested and excited to improve their craft and skill. Sometimes they'll push back and be like, no, I like higher order components more. And you say, oh, okay, that's, you know, whatever. I wouldn't be too concerned, I guess, with that. Lots of people are kind of set in their ways of doing things, and those are the kind of people that are gonna probably be perfectly happy until they retire and whatever, but they will fall behind. Might be a little bit harder for them to keep up with things, and there's not a whole lot you can do for people like that. Like, if they're actually slowing your product down, then that's a problem, but they're probably not. They're probably just, you know, I just want to finish my work and go home, and that's fine. But if they're causing trouble in the code base, like their code is really hard to read or understand, or and not just it's formatted differently than the way I would do it, but it leads to leaky abstractions or specific things that you can point to. That's when you can come and say, hey, like, this would be better if we changed the way we do things, and you can talk to them about that. If they still won't budge and they're still causing trouble, then you can talk to a manager or something. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. So I have a question on the YouTube comments. Could you tell me time of your workshop? Could you be more specific? Online, my online workshop. I don't have any online workshops scheduled right now. Eventually I will. Follow my newsletter. Go to kcd.im news, subscribe to my newsletter, and I will definitely let you know when I have an online workshop scheduled. Okay. By what properties do you differentiate an experienced developer in React? More about front end. Not about patterns you could use, but more about coding style and architecture decision. For example, maybe more advanced programmers don't make plain Axios calls in their componented mount, but make a separate API abstraction which takes care of it. Maybe someone uses static analysis tools like Prettier or ESLint, enhancing their workflow. So in your opinion, what decision an experienced React developer will take, which may not come at first sight? So what I actually just did an interview today, and here's what I did. I had them code up a counter, basically this counter component. I had them do that, and I walked them through that, and then I had them do a registration form where it'll show an error message when people are typing as they're typing, to kind of get an understanding of how they work with React. I should note that PayPal doesn't just value your experience with the tools and frameworks we use. We had 3 other, I think maybe 4 other people interviewing this person, and I was stuck with the framework specific questions. Anyway, so how I determine whether this developer was experienced or not in React is just how well they're able to create simple components like that. Components that don't have anything to do with Redux, that are like, let's just focus on the React abstraction itself. So how well do you understand React itself? So maybe advanced programmers don't make plain Axios calls in the component to mount. I actually, in a simple component where this is the only time I'm going to be using Axios, if you extracted that into a separate thing, I might actually not like that, because I feel like that would be an unnecessary abstraction. Now, if we have multiple components that are making the same calls or similar calls, then building an abstraction is nice. So I see premature abstraction and premature optimization as a indicator of inexperience. So like there's something to be said for clean, nicely separated code, but like if you make premature abstractions, and then that is an indication to me that you're spending more time just typing things away than actually solving problems. So another indicator, specific indicator, is if you have have 30 components where 10 would suffice, like 10 maybe longer long render methods. There's nothing wrong with a long render method. I much prefer a long render method over having like unnecessary like splits in your component, stuff like that. So as far as like using static analysis tools like Prettier and ESLint, yeah, I definitely would expect an experienced developer to use those kinds of tools to kind of help them. I would definitely expect an experienced developer to not use ESLint to yell at you for irrelevant things, like I don't know, sorting your import statements or your props or whatever. If I saw that, that's an indication to me that you're just wasting time on frivolous things. But yeah, I definitely see some value in using those tools to help silly mistakes, which everybody is going to make. Yeah, I guess the more experience that I get, the more I am able to differentiate between frivolous tasks and tasks that are actually useful, and provide value, and those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. So I just follow-up question on this YouTube question. Well, I'm from Finland, so it's a little difficult sometimes to follow. Thank you. I'm still not understanding what you're talking about. If you could be more specific, that would be great. Are you talking about, like, are you thinking of this as a workshop? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any online workshops scheduled currently, so it shouldn't be too hard to follow if you, regardless of where you are in the world, if you go to my newsletter and subscribe, you'll get an email when I schedule a workshop. online. Okay. All right, here's a heavy one for people. Does your faith heavily influence your work? In what ways? So here Darren says, I've been impressed by your work ethic, your humility, your ostensible time management with family and work. Those are all nice things. Thank you, Darren. Looking for wisdom on work and faith. How does your faith influence your work? In what ways? And so this was a conversation on Twitter. I wanted to give this Darren fellow a little bit more than just a 100 or 280 character response. So to answer the first question, does your faith heavily influence your work? Absolutely it does. My faith influences everything that I do. And so like in the mornings, I pray with my family, I pray by myself, and I study my scriptures. And in the evenings, I spend time with my family, I pray with my family, put my kids to bed and all that. And like at meal times I pray, and so it's my faith is a part of everything that I do. I pray for help in like solving bugs. Sometimes if I've got a really hard bug, I'll say a prayer to ask for help. And I definitely feel that. I'm also like just background. I'm a elder in my church, and so I hold the priesthood. I have the ability to give people blessings. And so at the beginning of the school year, I'll give a blessing to my children for the start of their school year. My dad was having some health issues, and he came over and I gave him a blessing. And I'll give my wife blessings when she's not feeling well. I can't give myself a blessing. That's not how the priesthood works. I'll get blessings from someone else. But yeah, so it's a really important part of my life, and so it does influence my work. So yeah, as far as work ethic, like we're taught to be honest, and so I try to put in an honest amount of work. We're also taught to love one another and that we're all brothers and sisters, and so that helps me a lot in being able to empathize with other people and do service for others. And so that's part of what motivates me to be a teacher and to help others at work when they have questions. I guess maybe part of the humility, it's kind of hard to talk about your own humility because that's like oxymoron-ish. I don't know. But if I have humility, I guess, then that comes from recognizing that we're all pretty much at the same level in the eyes of God, and that that level actually is incredibly high. As a father, I look up to my children, and I feel that our Heavenly Father values us very highly, and so he doesn't value me any more highly than he values you, and he is happy when we're serving each other, and so that's what I'm looking for in life is opportunities to serve. My family and work. So family's always number one for me. I married my wife in a temple that's actually just a couple blocks away from where I live, and that means that we can actually, I've got a little glass thing of it. This is pretty cool. That's where I got married, not inside of this cube. Come on, guys. So because we were married in a temple, we are sealed together for eternity, and so our family will be together forever. Family is just a really, really important part of my life, and so I dedicate a lot of time to be with them. But I've also made a commitment to work, and so I fulfill those commitments, and then I fulfill my family commitments as a number one there too. And my wife is really respectful of my time here working from home, and so I don't know, we just try to be honest and work hard. So yeah, let's see. I think a lot of where I'm coming from a faith perspective is that it's important to me to be honest and to recognize that we're all kind of in this together and that we're working hard to do our very best. And so trying to be empathetic and sympathetic to the needs of other people, and as well as my own needs, and look at others with the eyes of the Savior. as best I can. Always working to improve. Yeah. I don't know what else. I guess other things that like I try to avoid frivolous things that don't give me happiness. So I instead of like playing 3 hours a fortnight or whatever, I spend time with my family. Or instead of I don't know. Yeah, I just try to spend more time doing things that are gonna bring me value as a person and bring other people value as well. I don't know. I guess another thing, and this kind of influences my work. I don't know how to put this, I guess. But as part of my faith, I don't drink coffee, tea, or alcohol, or do drugs or things of that nature, or smoke or whatever. And so, like when I go to a conference or something, and it's like booze all around, I'm kind of out. So like I work remotely, so this isn't a huge problem. But they have happy hour every week at the office, and I'm always invited to come. And when I'm in the office, I go. I just don't take any of the alcohol, but it does make me feel a little bit kind of like an outsider. I don't mind it too much, and everybody's always quite respectful. But it is something like, be considerate of that if you're organizing an event or something. Definitely like have other drinks that are not alcoholic. That is very appreciated. And yeah. Anyway. Okay, so I got another question on the chat here. Hi, how much JavaScript is required to learn React, or what topics of JS should you learn for React? That's a great question. I've been thinking for a while that I need to make a course that's like essential JavaScript for React or something like that, where I would talk about JavaScript as well as the DOM APIs that would be useful for in use with React DOM. So yeah, I honestly have a hard time answering that question. If you really want to go deep with JavaScript, then You Don't Know JS is a great book series. I have my ES6 courses that I referenced earlier on in this video, that you can go watch those to get up to speed with the latest features of and syntax of ES6. And so I recognize that as being that could be valuable. And yeah, eventually, like there's the JavaScript 30 course that I referenced earlier as well. Eventually, I do plan on making a course that's like, here's what you need to know to use React effectively. That'll be a huge course. The nice thing about React is that most of your time is spent learning JavaScript rather than some template syntax, and so that's one of the reasons that I like React so much. Let's see. Okay, cool. Well, let us do this last question. NPM security and vulnerability. Okay, I'm pretty sure Kent talked about NPM package security check, but I cannot find it. If you have any idea, please point it out. I get this message in GitHub. Found potential security vulnerability in one of your dependencies, which is scary. I don't know how to fix it. The document says use NPM audit, but it's an unknown argument for NPM. So if it's an unknown argument for NPM, it's probably because you're using an old version of NPM, so you need to upgrade. So I'm guessing that the let's see. I'm just gonna try and find one of my old projects that might have this warning, so I can show this off. If the internet will work, come on. Okay, so we'll look at my repositories and scroll down. Boohoo. Here, let's look at one of my old Angular ones. Okay, pop open some of these. I'm sure that one of these are bound to have security vulnerabilities by now. Nope, nothing there. Nope. Huh. Well, it happens sometimes. It'll just like pop up at the top and say you have security vulnerabilities. Normally it'll just have like links for you to learn more about it. And yeah, like these are probably helpful. it'll normally tell you which dependencies are insecure, and so you can there are a couple of things you can do. If it's a dependency of a dependency, that's called a transitive dependency, and in that case, you can go to that package and say, hey, you've got a security vulnerability, could we update that package? If it's your own dependency, then you can either like commit to the or kind of try to contribute to the that dependency and say, like, let's fix this vulnerability, or you can swap that dependency for something else. So most of the time, if you're doing like front-end packages and stuff, it's probably not a huge deal. But I mean, we should take security very seriously. So I don't know. That's kind of a general question. And so that's about as much as I can give you there. Okay, cool. So that's it for today. Quite a long one. If anybody would like, I'd really appreciate somebody to take the time to link up the like anything that I referenced in these answers. That would be really, really nice. And also like take this video and find the times where I'm talking about specific things and get a table of contents or something. That'd be cool. Okay, so we've got another question here. Hi, Kent. In what cases server side routing can be used together with client-side routing on the project? Like routes in Node together with React Router in one project. Is it even a thing? Thank you. I don't know. I've done very little server-side rendering, so I can't really tell you. I'm sorry. Server-side rendering to me is always like only do it if you must, because it adds a whole lot of complexity to your project. So most of the times we don't need, I haven't needed it. I've actually never needed server-side rendering in any of the projects that I've done, and that's why I haven't done much of it. Okay, cool. I hope that you all are doing awesome, and I hope that was helpful, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.